Hey there everyone, welcome to my core video. My name is Ashlyn, I'm a fitness and sports instructor with CFB Borden. Today I'm going to be taking you through a little bit of a shorter core workout, but we're going to discuss kind of what the core means and what we define as the entire core. And then as we go through the workout, just start picking apart like all the little pieces of the core and how we can really make a whole system of it rather than just, the typical plank or crunches or sit-ups, etc. So I hope you'll join me for the whole thing. Before we get started, just please, for your safety, make sure that you do read the disclaimer in the description below this video before you start any of your virtual training. So what is our core? Here we define our core as our entire torso. So anything that connects your legs and your arms to your torso, all of those muscles are going to be incorporated within your core. So our core helps us move, it helps us function, rotate, flex forward, extend backwards, balance ourselves as we're walking or running. In our workouts with weights, it allows us to stabilize so that we don't fall apart and we're not a total noodle. So it's really, really important and integral to our everyday functioning. We have two different types of core systems. So we have our inner core system and then we have several outer core systems. So your inner core system is your diaphragm, the piece that helps you breathe. It's also your very deep spinal erector muscles. So the muscles very, very deep within your spine that kind of hold it together and allow the spine to stay stable and then also move backwards a little bit in space. It's also your pelvic floor. So there's 4 specific muscles within your pelvic floor that kind of help keep us all together within our torso. And then it is also your transverse abdominis, which is the deepest abdominal muscle that you have, and it crosses the front of your belly from hip bone to hip bone into the pelvis muscles as well. So those 4 muscles are super important. It's not always easy to quote unquote train them, but we are going to talk about how we can kind of hit some of those muscles a little bit while we go through our workout, because they are very important to your overall function and your stability. The outer core muscles are the more superficial muscles that sort of, as I said before, connect your limbs to your body. They help you move and function. They help with that rotation or that flexion forward or that balance as you're walking. So all of those muscles, and there's several different systems, we're not going to get into them, but those are your outer core systems, and then your inner core is the deeper muscles inside. So when you're training your core, it's really important to think about 3 specific things. So can you move it functionally? Functionally means that can your core work for you when you're doing functional movements, things that you do every single day? It's one thing to say that you have a really strong core as you hold a plank, but you're not holding a plank in your daily life. So is your core still transferably strong when you go for a run or when you lift heavy weights or when you're moving furniture in your house? So that is functional core. Second, it needs to move optimally. So are your muscles moving as optimally and efficiently as possible? Are they helping you with the least amount of energy as possible, or are they feeling extremely fatigued after something fairly small because there's some muscles that are overstraining and other muscles that are not working for you properly? So that's optimally working. And then that leads us into the final one, which is synergistically working. So are your muscles synergistically working? What does that mean? It means that all the muscles are working together and doing their job properly. So often as human beings, naturally we have imbalances. Sometimes you will be really strong in your glutes, for example, and then the front of your hips are not very strong. Some people are really strong in their upper back and their shoulders, but then their low back is really, really weak. So synergistically means that we're teaching our muscles to all do their job together. There's not just one muscle that does one movement. There's multiple muscles that do one movement. And we want to make sure that all of that is working together. So we're going to start to touch on some of those pieces today, and hopefully at the end of the class you're feeling a little bit more supported in your body, a little bit more in control, and a little bit stronger overall. All right, so let's get started. This workout is going to be a little bit slower than a typical workout, so just bear with me. Make sure you're paying attention to your body. It's all about moving with intention, focusing on the quality of the movements, and really starting to understand how our body functions all together. So I hope that you feel really good after the workout, and let's start here. So we're gonna start seated on the ground. I want you to find a comfortable position. So for me, that's cross-legged. If that's not comfortable for you, just find a seated position that you feel fairly comfortable in. And I want you to be able to sit tall. So make sure that we're not just kind of slouching around, that we're sitting up nice and tall. And we're gonna do a breathing exercise to really get that diaphragm that I talked about first. So we're gonna breathe in for 6 counts and out for 6 counts. And then in for 8, out for 8, and then in for 10, out for 10, in for 12, out for 12. 10 and 12 are probably gonna feel very challenging. So if you do get to one of those and you feel like you can't quite make it, when we go to the next step up, you're just gonna stay at the number that you feel you can make. So if 6 is easy, 8 is easy, 10 is tough, but you can do it, then just stay at 10 instead of going to 12. Okay, just kind of play around with it. It doesn't have to be perfect, just about warming up that diaphragm and some of those other muscles surrounding it. So let's start by just taking a normal deep breath in and exhale. We'll take one more normal breath before we start. And exhale. And notice how your lungs really filled up and your torso sort of expanded and then collapsed. So that's the diaphragm expanding and collapsing, or expanding and contracting and starting to work. So let's start with our 6 counts. You're gonna breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Last one. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Inhale normally. And exhale normally. Nice. So hopefully you feel like that was a challenge and you had to work. If it wasn't, you can always do this on your own and go a little bit higher with your numbers and just challenge that into 14, 16, 18, 20, depending on how strong your lungs are. So feel free to challenge yourself on your own. So just to warm up the spine a little bit, we're gonna take one hand, cross it over to the opposite knee. Other hand goes behind you and just look over your shoulder as you do a little twist, and then come back into the middle. And we'll go the other way. Opposite hand to knee, look over your shoulder, and return. So inhale as you turn away, exhale as you come to center. We're starting to warm up some of those side muscles. So not only just our diaphragm, but also our obliques as we find some rotation. One more on each side. And last one. Good, awesome. All right, we're gonna come down onto our backs now. So I want you to lie down on your back with your feet flat on the floor, knees and feet are hip distance apart. And then I want you to take the heels of your hands and I want you to place them right on your hip bones. So the bony part's right on top of your hips. And then your fingertips come together like a diamond. And you're gonna place the fingertips on top of the pubic bone. So we're making a little diamond across that muscle that I said was our transverse abdominis, so our very deep abdominal muscle. And with the heels of those hands, can you pull the hip bones towards you as your pubic bone tips up and you press the lower back into the floor. And then you're gonna reach that pubic bone and hip bones away as you raise the lower back off the floor. So now there's quite a significant space under the mat in my lower back. And then tilt it down so that the lower back presses in, and then reach away as the lower back comes off. So my hip bones and my tailbone are always on the floor. They're never lifting off the ground, but my lower back is changing between being pressed in and arching above. And you should feel the hip bones underneath your fingertips, or sorry, the heels of your hands moving around as you do so. Good. And as you move from position to position, hopefully you start to feel like the center of your core is warming up. So those lower abdominals are starting to work. It's not a crazy hard exercise, it's just a little bit of activation. Good, and as you press your lower back in, can you draw your belly button in towards your spine and really flatten out your tummy? And then release it all as you reach those hip bones away and arch your back. And then tuck your tail, lower back pushes in, belly button draws in towards the floor, into your spine, and then reach it all the way and relax. So hopefully that starts to kick in the core even more as you do so. And then once this motion feels like it kind of makes sense, because I know it's a weird thing to do, once you start to feel comfortable with it, I want you to take the weight out of your feet. So you're not going to lift them off the floor, but they're going to become really weightless. And I want you to keep moving the pelvis the way you were before. And now there's a lot more core working. So we're getting that deep transverse abdominis, that very deep abdominal muscle that I said. We're getting the size of our body into our obliques a little bit. We are working our pelvic floor, even though you can't really feel it. And as long as you're not holding your breath, that diaphragm is working as well. Good, keep the weight out of the feet, nice and light on those feet, just using your abdominals to make this motion happen. The back spinal muscles that I talked about are also working really hard too, as you arch and flex. Good, and then keep the motion going, but put your feet back on the ground nice and heavy, so you're pressing with your feet. And notice how it takes a lot of the effort out of your core. So we're not really using our core as much anymore. We're using more our legs. Just notice that difference. Good, and then you're going to settle in between those two positions. So halfway between that nice arch and that really tuck and press, somewhere in between. So there's a very gentle curve under your spine, like it's loose under there, but you're not arching it as far as possible and straining your lower back. Okay, so somewhere in the middle. Good, and then keep those hands on the hip bones. And I want you to raise one leg into tabletop. So tabletop 90 degrees at the hip, 90 degrees at the knee, and then lower that leg down. Good, and switch sides, lift the other leg into tabletop and lower. And you're gonna switch sides from leg to leg. And can you keep those hip bones really still underneath the heels of your hands? Or are you becoming like it's sort of pulling away from one hand as you lift the leg, and then it's lifting into that hand and pulling away the other one? I want them to stay as evenly pressured as possible, and that means you need to really turn on that core a little bit more. So if we were sort of making this a functional movement, you can think of this as lifting your knee up, or taking a step up a big stair, or going hiking. It's all the same. We're creating stability in that pelvis while we march our legs. Well done, guys. We're going to do one more on this final side. Settle that leg on the ground. Take a deep breath. If you were holding your breath, make sure you're trying to breathe through this. All right, let's take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, can you pull your belly button to your spine and lift your right leg? Pause with that right leg up here. Good, keep that lower belly drawing in and towards the spine. Hip bones level. Raise the other leg up to meet it. So both legs are in tabletop. Good, so we're balancing a meal on top of our shins, so it's nice and flat and level. Good. Can we turn back to that pelvic tilting that we did when our feet are on the ground? So you're going to press your lower back into the floor, and then you're going to just come back to neutral. So don't arc as far as possible forward. Just do a little tuck, and then come back, and tuck, and then back center. Good, so keep drawing belly button in. We're not straining our lower back when we do this. Now if you notice, my legs are moving with me. What I want you to try to do is tuck without moving your legs at all. So now I can keep my legs still. You may notice that I'm shaking a little bit. I'm using a lot of my core to do this. But my legs are not coming with my body. It's just my lower back that pushes in. We're making a difference between what the pelvis is doing and the abs are doing and what the legs are doing. Good, one more. And then give those knees a little hug. They're doing a great job. Good, and you can just rock from side to side. All right, let's put our feet back on the floor. Hands can come back to those hip bones, and we're gonna do a bit of a different twist with our hips. So I want you to think about there's a little bit of water across your lower belly, and you're gonna drop your right hip bone as you pour the water out of that right side onto the side of your body, or the side of your mat. Good, and then come back into the center and then tilt that water going the other way. And center. Tilt in one direction, and then tilt in the other. Good. And once you feel like you've gotten a feel for that, my legs are moving a little bit. I want you to make the motion smaller and smaller so that your legs don't move at all, and just those hip bones move. And really feel how that asks your core to work, and potentially it asks the back of your bum, so those glute muscles, those butt muscles, does it ask them to work a little bit too? So now we're connecting our core to our limbs. We're using those torso connecting muscles and our lower abdominals. Got just a couple more on each side. Last one in each direction. And settle in the center. Very nice, guys. All right, we're gonna add to that. So let's bring one leg into tabletop. Keep those hip bones level and bring the other into tabletop. Nice. Both legs are in tabletop here. You're gonna glue those knees together and ankles together. So everything's touching. They're not hip width apart anymore. Can you tilt those hip bones? Pour the water out as you lean your legs slightly to one side without lifting up the ribs on the opposite side. So I'm going to the left, and it means the back of my right ribs are staying stuck to the floor. Good, come center. Let's go the opposite direction. Pick up that other hip and tilt one hip to the floor, pouring water out. Good, tilt to one side and tilt to the other. Good, it's a smaller movement, but hopefully you start to feel the sides of your body really working, as well as lower belly. Hip flexors are working as well, so those muscles that cross the front of the hip. Good, one more on each side. Nice, and lower your legs down to the floor. Beautiful, let's bring our arms to a T so they're in line with the shoulders. Feet together, and then just rock your knees all the way from side to side. Nice little break here. Good, and then you're gonna roll yourself up onto your side. And I want you to bend your knees so that they're in front of your body just a little bit, and then the heels of your feet are kind of in line with your bum and your spine. Your arm is gonna go right underneath your shoulder, and you're gonna be tall on that arm. So if you were relaxed, it would be tucked under your body, but if you're tall, it's right under your shoulder. And this top hand can just be wherever is comfortable, so I'm gonna have it on my hip. Good. So we're gonna use our shoulder muscles a little bit here, as well as our side abs or our obliques. So can you press your knees into the floor? And I want you to take your opposite hand and I want you to pull your ribs towards the sky and then just let them sink a little bit. And pull them to the sky and let them sink. And as you pull them to the sky, can you feel those muscles on the side of your body really working? One more time, pull to the sky. Let's hold that little arch that we have. Push the elbow and the knees in and lift your hips just a few inches off the floor. Good. Lower the hips down, but don't collapse into the shoulder. Lift the hips up. Stay tall on your arm and lower. Good. Lift the hips and lower. Keep staying tall on that arm. Don't collapse. If your neck gets tired, you can look straight down to the floor to release some of that pressure. One more time, raise the hips to the sky and pause for me. Good, I want you to pretend like you're sitting back in a chair a little bit, so your hips go back just a little bit. So we're in a nice long line. Side of the body is really working all the way from the hip to the shoulder. Arm comes to the sky. We're gonna do some rotation. So let's bring that arm underneath our body as you rotate your chest towards the floor. Come right back to stack on top of one another. Rotate forward. Feel the side of that body really working. Feel the shoulder really working. Rotate forward. Try not to collapse into the shoulder. Make sure you keep space between ear and shoulder. Rotate one last time. Grow tall and lower down and come on up and just roll that shoulder out. Good. So I know it's a lot of work for the shoulder, but I hope you feel like it's a little bit more supported. We've created support from the bottom of our hip all the way up the side of our body and into our armpit. And it's holding that shoulder in position a little bit better. So that's part of our torso, part of our core. And it means that when you go to move your shoulder for some sort of other activity, it has the support that it needs to move in the way that it needs to and under the load that you're asking it to, okay? So before we switch sides, we're gonna come right back to that arm, but we're gonna focus a little bit more on our hips now. So let's set ourselves up, elbow under shoulder, knees stacked, sitting in that imaginary chair behind you. Can you lift your hips to the sky and pause? Nice. The top leg is going to stretch out and settle on the floor. Good. And I want you to make sure you can't see your toes when you look down, or barely can see the toes. Okay? Otherwise, your foot's too far forward. In this position, can you raise the foot up and lower it down? And raise and lift. If it's too far forward and your hips are sinking, you're going to raise way too high. So keep it in line with your body and just do a little raise. You should feel lots of work in the bum, in the side of your leg, inside of your hip. Still staying tall on that shoulder. Breathing. Good. 3 and 2 and 1 and lower down with control and come on up and roll it out. Fantastic. We're going to go to the other side now. So setting up right over top of that shoulder, knees are bent slightly in front of your body, heels are in line with your bum and your spine, and that other hand can just be wherever's most comfortable for you. Let's start by curving our ribs to the sky and then releasing them, and curving them to the sky and release. Curve to the sky, really feel that core working underneath your hand. And last one, curve to the sky and pause. Beautiful, sit back in that imaginary chair as you press your knees in to lift the hips a few inches off the floor and lower them down to the ground. And lift them up and lower down. Good, lift, stay stacked, don't collapse in the shoulder. Lower, lift, and lower. Last one, let's lift and pause. Fantastic. Arm goes to the sky. We're really tall on that stabilizing arm. Rotate forward as your chest comes to the floor and grow tall. And rotate forward as your chest comes to the floor and grow tall. Keep staying tall on that arm. Don't allow it to collapse. And rotate. 2 more. Rotate. Press away with that arm. Good. Think about pulling your arm towards your hip and your hip towards your arm. Last one. Let's lower down with control and sit up and just roll that shoulder out. Nice. Well done, everybody. All right. We're going to try that other hip now. So back into that same position, growing really tall. Again, if your neck is getting sore, just look down at the floor instead of straight forward. That'll help. Press your knees and elbow in as you lift your hips off the floor and pause. So as I said really quick in the last one, can you think about pulling your arm towards your hip and your hip towards your arm, so you're sort of pulling them together, even though they're not going to move. It's just going to activate a lot more. Stretch that leg out and let it collapse, or let it rest on the floor. Raise the leg up and lower, and raise and lower, and try not to drop towards the floor as you do this. Keeping that leg right in line with their body so you're not able to see too much of it if you look down. Couple more here, guys. Notice if this side feels a little easier for you or a little less, a little more challenging for you. Everybody has a good side and a bad side. Last one. And lower with control, don't collapse. Good. Whew. And roll that out. Amazing. All right, we're gonna come to lying on our bellies here. And I want your hands in front of you at about your forehead. Okay, just clasped on top of one another, legs are out straight, and your forehead is just going to come onto your hands. So I'm going to have my head up for the most part while I explain, but do try to continue to look down towards your hands as you do this, just to make sure that your neck is in nice alignment with the rest of your spine. So we're going to just balance out on those hip bones. So if you can notice the hip bones we were playing with before, they're evenly weighted on the mat, so you're not sort of hiked up on one side or the other. Good, and then your right leg is going to reach really long, almost as if you could try to touch the wall behind you. And then I want you just to raise it up off the floor straight as high as you can. And lower it down. Good, we're going to go to the left. So reach the left leg long and raise. Good. Switch from side to side, reaching long and lifting as much as possible. I want you to keep even weight on those hip bones. So if you lift your leg and you get really heavy on one hip, then you're not doing it right. So find that core, find that stabilization, and stay nice and balanced and even on each hip, even if the leg lifts. Good. Keep drawing your belly button up and away from the mat so that we stay out of our lower back. I want you to feel like the bum muscles in the back of the leg are really working to lift this leg, not our lower back. Good. Last time on the left here. Good. Head is down on those hands. Last one with the right. Let's lift and pause here. Good. So you're going to reach that leg away. It's lifted. It's paused. You're feeling the back of your bum, back of your leg. Can you bend your knee in towards your bum like you're doing a hamstring curl, and pause here. Good. Now instead of reaching your toe to the back wall, you're going to reach your knee to the back wall as you keep it hovered and reach your toe towards the sky. Feel those glutes really working. Keep drawing belly button away from your spine to protect the lower back. For 3 and 2 and 1. Don't drop. Reach the leg long. Try to touch that back wall, still hovered. And lower to the floor. Good job, and shake it out a little bit. Nice, we'll do that once on the left side. So head is down on those hands. You're gonna raise your left leg away as you point the toe and lift it off the floor. Belly button is drawn in so that you're not into your lower back. Bend your knee like you're hamstring curling. Reaching your knee now for the back wall and your toe to the sky. Trying to get a little more height every time. Keep pulling belly button away. Pretend that there's like an ice cube underneath your belly button and you don't want to touch it. Pull belly button away, away, away. For 3, 2, 1. Reach the leg long, still hovered, and lower it down. Fantastic. Shake out those hips, and then we're going to move our hands into a goalpost position. So that means that our elbows are in line with our shoulders. Our hands are just to the outside of our mat. And your head is just going to be hovered a few inches off the floor. So you're still looking straight down, but it's not squished up against the mat. Can you pull your belly button away from your spine and pull your elbows towards your hips? They're not going to move, but I want you to think about dragging them into the floor and pulling them backwards. So that really turns on the sides of your body and underneath your armpits. And then you're going to press into your elbows even more as you start to lift your head, neck, and shoulders and just look slightly beyond your mat. Good. Come back down just to that hover. Pull elbows backwards like you could slide yourself forward. And then start to raise your head, neck, and shoulders as you lift a little higher. So really working those back spine muscles. And return. Good. Press the elbows down. Begin to raise your head, neck, and shoulders, looking just slightly beyond your mat. Belly button is pulling away from that icicle or that ice cube. And come down. You should feel lots of work in between your shoulder blades and your upper back. Last time, let's press elbows back like you're trying to reach them to your toes. Raise your head, neck, and shoulders slightly. Good. Keep pulling up if you can. Lots of support here. If it feels okay on your lower back, I want you to press into your hands a little bit and lift just a little bit higher, but that lower back is not going to be affected. Reach, 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 and come all the way back down. And relax. Fantastic. Place those hands under your shoulders. Just push yourself up. Good. We're just going to do one more thing, and then we'll do a little test, and then we're done for the workout. So let's come to standing, guys. Toes are going to point forward, and they're going to be the same width as your hips or your shoulders, so somewhere in between there. You're going to find those hip bones, and I want you to push them backwards as you come into a hip hinge. So this is the same position you would be in if you started a stiff leg deadlift, or if you were doing a bent over row. Okay, so that hip hinge position. Your back is nice and flat. I want you to reach your sitting bones for the wall. So we're not tucked and curved. We're really, really reaching. Okay, your lower back has to work, and that's okay. As long as it's not straining, it's working. So belly button still pulls in. It's always active to support. Backs of the legs start to work a little bit, because if they didn't, we would fall over one way or the other. Okay? And then your arms are going to come up to your sides, palms facing forward. We're going to stay in this position the entire length of this exercise. I want you to really try not to come out of it. All right, so reach your arms long. Try to touch the wall behind you. Good, stay bent over. Keep belly button pulled in. And you're just going to do little tiny pulses with your arms, like you're trying to slap water, for example, behind you. So little tiny pulses. Belly button is really pulling into spine to support lower back, but the lower back is working, and that's okay. Good. Keep breathing. Try not to hold your breath. Backs of the legs are working. Glutes are working. Pause. Let's bring our hands to a T. Really well done, guys. We're going to do little slaps of the water here. Our back is having to work a little bit more. It's starting to fatigue. That's okay. Keep pulling your belly button in. Keep the back flat. Don't curve it. Keep it nice and neutral. Good. Pause. Let's bring our hands up in front of us in a V. Good. If that's too much, bend them, but otherwise keep them straight and do little pulses out here, slapping that water out front. Back is really working. Belly button draws in. Backs of legs are working. Come on, guys. Find that core support. Good. Pause. Bring your hands to your quads, really, really high up. Don't stand. You're going to push into your quads and start to tuck your tail as you round your spine. Round, 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 and grow tall all the way back to the top and stand. Beautiful. And just shake it out. If you're in a space right now that you can do a little walk around, just do like a little circle. What I want you to notice is as you're walking, do you feel taller? Do you feel more supported? I know we worked the back a ton right now. We worked the core a lot earlier, but hopefully it makes you feel like you're actually supported and you can move your body more optimally, more functionally, and more synergistically. So everything is working together to help you out. When you've done your little walk around, come back to your mat, and we're just gonna do a little roll down. So you're gonna nod your chin, and then slowly start to roll yourself down towards the floor, vertebrae by vertebrae. Okay, you can bend your knees whenever you need. Take a deep breath in at the bottom, and exhale as you start to roll yourself back up. And I want you to notice if that feels pretty fluid. I know we didn't do any at the beginning, but if you've done that in the past, see if this feels a little bit more fluid than it used to. We'll just do one more. So nod your chin. Start to roll yourself down. Slowly, 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 piece by piece, all the way down to the ground. Bend your knees as needed. And then roll yourself all the way back up, piece by piece, coming back up to standing. And then grow tall through your head. Nice, all right, shake it out, guys. Well done. Thank you for joining me today. Make sure that you leave a comment in the section below if you do have any questions, or if you're looking for any clarification, or if you want more exercises. Further, if you are in the Borden area, feel free to shoot me an email. My name is Ashlyn Karosas, K-A-R-O-S-A-S. It's also at the start of the video, and I'm on the D1, so you can always reach out to me there. And thank you again for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye.